Hey everyone, welcome to the Lions Den of Leadership. This is your host, Steve Rozenberg, and I'm here with my good friend, Alex Osenenko. How am I doing on that one, man? Pretty
It's
good?
getting better, man. You're definitely maturing through the pronunciation adventure we're having here. But yeah, you're doing
Yes.
well, man. Thank you.
Yes. So the reason we have this show, Lions Den of Leadership, is, Alex and I as entrepreneurs, we're always working and talking, and we're good friends, and we've had many, many conversations about just the shit that we go through as business owners that people don't talk about. And, I love all the shows that are out there. I love all the podcast shows. But unfortunately, I think a lot of those shows fall short because all they do is talk about the great things that are going on. They're promoting products, which I think is important. They're doing a lot of great things, but I think what they're not doing is for people like me that's a business owner, when you have to deal and understand culture and accountability and KPIs and what our own shortcomings are, we realize that there's things that we have to do too, and there's accountability. Whether you have a great product and you've got a shiny new widget, that's all well and good, but if you're imploding from the inside, meaning as a leader, and you're not leading your team and you're not creating the structure, I think that is where people fall off. And I think that not enough conversation is talking about how to actually get shit done on a daily basis, how to be accountable, how to hold your team accountable, how to hold you accountable. And, I don't know about a lot of people, but I always learn from hearing what other people's challenges were, how they got out of mistakes that maybe were self-induced or the environment induced on them, whatever the case may be. And, I love talking to other successful business owners, whether it's in the real estate industry or not. We can all learn, I think, as entrepreneurs of how to be better at this craft, because I think a lot of people, Alex and myself included, and we'll see Ken, our guest, this was not my first choice in life to do this. I didn't wake up out of high school and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So a lot of this is secondary, and we're trying to learn as we go. It's kind of very similar, no pun intended, but it's kind of like building an airplane as we're flying it. And so, the only way you're going to get better is by talking to people, brainstorming, and trying to come up with better ways to build a better mousetrap, essentially, is the way I look at it. Would you agree with that, Alex?
100%. And before we introduce Ken, I just want to say one other thing is, look, I think what we're trying to do here is help each other in our entrepreneurial journeys, help our guests, but also start the week right. Like I said, I have really, with my day, I communicate with my team, my employees, my two new integrators, and we're heavy into the EOS implementation process. But really, I want to talk to, I want to have at least an hour a week where I can fulfill my own sort of knowledge and set myself up for a week talking to other entrepreneurs who are maybe dealing with similar issues and a day-to-day of running the business. And it's inspiring to me to have people like Ken Jennings on the show where we get to, put him out, experiment a little bit with his failures and all learn together against those. And Steve and I failed plenty, right? So we'll definitely weave our own crappy stuff into it. So we all learn.
I think the thing, Alex, though, is that, we're so, all of us, we built these companies, all of us have built these companies at some level, and we're so good at being technicians and operators. And we're always talking to other operators and technicians, but sometimes we're at the C-level view, we're in the weeds. And sometimes you have to have these conversations of working on the business, and you got to elevate, and it's not the 5,000 foot view. We need to get the 30,000 foot view. We got to really look long and far to go, okay, am I even taking this whole trip, this whole company on the wrong destination? And sometimes as operators, we're so far in that rabbit hole as being an operator and a technician, because normally that's how our businesses all start. We start out as operators and we get pushed up by getting people below us, but it doesn't mean that we're becoming better owners. And I think that's where a lot of people fail is they, you and I, we do a lot of self, education and trying to become better. But I think a lot of the people out there, they don't continually try to become better. And what happens, I think, a lot of times is the business outgrows them. And all of a sudden, now there's no leader driving the ship. And all of a sudden, the ship is heading towards the rocks. And the guy who was supposed to be the one that is supposed to be accountable of growing themselves to be able to be at the 30,000 foot view, it's too late. it's kind of like smoking your whole life, right? And then getting cancer, trying to stop then. It's too late. And I think that's what I think that's why a lot of businesses fail. We can ask Ken his thoughts and go from there. So Ken, thanks for being on the show today. We got Ken Jennings here. So Ken, I'll let you, a lot of people know who you are, but I'll let you do your own introduction. Tell everybody who you are. I know you have many, many talents and some multiple businesses, so I couldn't even name them all if I tried. So go for it.
Well, Ken Jennings, I'm most known for Mr. Rekey, which was a national locksmith company started in Austin, Texas. Me out of one truck, actually borrowed my mom's car in the beginning, then got a truck, and then we built it to a national scale. I think I'm most known for that. I have had other businesses. Before Rekey, I had 40 different businesses from the age of 13 to the time that I started Rekey some 20 years ago. But yeah, I relate to what you're saying, because you think you've learned all the mistakes that you could have, and then there's a brand new crop of new mistakes. And certainly being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster, absolutely. But those are the companies that I've had and built, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to share my shortcomings and the mistakes that I have made, and the ways we've had to deal with, and the lessons I've learned along the way through my mistakes.
Ken, is the Mr. Rekey your biggest business to date?
Yes, Mr. Rekey is my biggest business to date. I have some that are kind of rivaling it, but that is the largest business that I've had.
Gotcha. And what's the percentage of your time spent running this particular business, Mr. Rekey?
Well, right now, probably 80% of my time. There was probably a time where it was 100%, and then it went down to maybe 50%, and then down to maybe 20% of my time, as I had other interests and other things I wanted to spend time exploring, right, and developing, because that's the entrepreneur spirit, right? You want to constantly find that new idea. You see ideas everywhere, right? That's one of the hallmark identifying factors of really an entrepreneur. If everywhere you go you see opportunities, you're probably an entrepreneur, right? Like the movie where the kid sees dead people everywhere. Well, entrepreneurs see opportunity everywhere, right? And so when you see that, I find myself always having to limit what I would pursue. But sometimes there's this idea that so gets into your core, and you want to go for it. And so
Can you give an example?
Yeah. What's that?
Can you give an example?
The idea of buying and flipping businesses. I've spent $1 million on my mindset and all of the coaching and training and everything that I've done. And I sit through these mastermind groups, right? And you can see what other people are doing wrong, and you see, I want to help them. And then there's just the opportunity. So, for instance, a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, there's an opportunity for us to help this other company grow, this graphics company. And I said, I'm in, let's do it. And it's been exciting, and it took a lot of time, and it's been fantastic. And we watched this company quadruple in size, and that's been great. The problem is getting back to the core question here, is how much time was I spending in Rekey? And I think that time had dropped down to 10, 20% of my time. And unfortunately, I feel the effects of it now, right? Which we can go into great detail.
That was my next question. What happened in Florida?
What's that?
What happened in Florida?
In Florida? What do you mean in particular?
Well, I spoke to Daniel, which is the key guy for Mr. Rekey, as far as he's the face of the company to me. I really love the guy. I mean, the enthusiasm he has for the organization is uncanny. I mean, I don't know if he's the owner or not, but a part owner or a stockholder, but he acts like one for sure.
That's awesome. You can't pay for that. Well, Florida, we started off in the beginning. When we were first franchising, we sold the franchise location in the Orlando area. And it turned out this guy was not very, how would you say, he lacked some scruples, right? And he decided that he was just becoming a franchisee to steal all of our ideas and go against us, right?
Ooh.
But it didn't work out. He had hired Daniel as one of his people. And when he fell down, because he didn't have our years of experience at this, Daniel had come to Austin to get training for that location. Well, I reached out to Daniel. I said, Daniel, I already got some traction there. You're a good guy. I want to keep you. And so I went ahead and opened up the Orlando area. From there, Daniel and I were able to move into the Tampa area, and that was great. We then took on an investor for Fort Lauderdale, and we sold a franchise in Jacksonville. So we were in 4 major cities in Florida. But with the things that happen in business, and we can talk about that, right now, Florida suffered for us. And we finally had to shut down Fort Lauderdale. It just never really got off the ground. And that goes back to some of the problems that were innate to our core structure. So we had to shut down Fort Lauderdale, and the other 3 cities have suffered because our service level took a dive. And our company was built on our service level.
That's painful.
But I made some critical mistakes, and it damaged our service level. I say mistakes, but the things that I could have done, didn't do, failed to do, mistakes I made, had hurt our service level. And we lost a lot of customers there. So now in Florida, we're hanging on. We're still in Jacksonville. We're still in Tampa and Orlando, but our service level is coming way up now, but our business level is half of what it used to be.
So Ken, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't know the Florida situation. I'm going to pull back just a little bit more,
sure.
A little bigger view here. So you said that it was 90%, it went to 80%. You went down to 10%. Now, what I've been taught by our coaches and mentors is that the definition of a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that runs without you. So it looks to me like you were heading in that direction. You went to 10%. So my first question is were you down at 10%, and was it slowly unwinding because of maybe lack of systems, lack of vision, and now you had to get back involved and you have to recreate the systems? But basically, why did you get down to 10%? And were you 10% because you were abdicating and not involved, or was it really running itself at 10% and it fell off some kind of cliff? Because if you're a national level, Florida shouldn't have brought you back up another into 80 percentile, unless I'm missing something.
Well, let me see if I can answer your question. It's a multifaceted question.
Lots of things to unpack. Yep, that's Steve for you.
I agree with you. A business, if it can't run itself without you, if you were hit by a bus and you're in a coma for 6 months, that business should continue on. If it can't, it's not a business. You're just self-employed, right? You are the business. You are the driver, and without you. So yes, I tried to get to the point where the business was running itself. That was the goal. With my 10% of my time in it was simply to meet on a weekly basis. In fact, I didn't even have an office in our main corporate headquarters. That's where I was trying to get to. Why should I have an office there? I'm going to come in, I'm going to meet with the team, and then I'm going to leave. And I'm going to go to the next business, and I'm going to meet with the team, and then I'm going to leave. That's my highest and best use of my experience and time. Okay?
Yep.
Where I screwed up here is this, that it comes down to, well, let me just say this. When you decide to grow your business from a small company to a national company, right? When you make that decision, you also, by default, make a decision that you're going to bring a lot of people in, right? And you're going to have to give a lot of people authority to run your company. And when you don't have a system for hiring and making sure that the right people are in the right seats, you open yourself up for a degradation of your business. Let me say this. So here, it's the Peter principle, right? We all know that, where you take a person and you promote them beyond their ability.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Right. So, when a person starts with you, maybe they're an employee, right? And they're a great employee, so you move them to the supervisor level. Well, that's a little bit different. Supervisor understands what's needed, and they do their job. And they were a great employee, they could probably supervise. I get that. Supervision is just making sure everybody shows up to work and they do their job. But then the next level up is manager. Now, a manager is a little bit more than a supervisor. A manager is someone who's going to fix things that screw up. They're going to manage the people, and they're going to do more, right? And then maybe beyond manager, they get to be a director, right? And then maybe beyond director, they get to be a VP, right? And then maybe beyond VP, they get to be a COO, right? And then maybe beyond COO, they get to be a VP. and they're a department head of an entire department that has to interact with everyone else. Well, if you take a supervisor and you make them a manager, right, and they're not really qualified to do that, that's the Peter principle, right? You move them.
So you rise to the highest level of incompetence, or to the top level of your incompetence.
So, but what happens is you can get emotionally involved with people. I mean, just in that they've worked for you for a while,
Yeah.
you like them, you appreciate what they did, and you say to yourself, even though you know the Peter principle, it's in your head, you know it's the right thing to do, but for some reason, you put that aside and you say, this is a great guy. He's worked for me for a long time. Let me make him a director, or let me make him a manager. And you're thinking he'll fit into the position.
He'll upskill.
Right. But did he really have the skill set to do that job? Right. You're thinking that you could promote this great, loyal, hardworking, bleed company colors person to that thing, and that you're rewarding them. But what you could be doing, if you don't have a system for making them perform, you could be slowly destroying your company. If you do that in enough positions, then yes, each one is going to start, and they're only going to be able to perform to the level that they're familiar with. It's why a company like Home Depot would pay millions of dollars for a CEO. Why would they do that? Why would they pay millions and millions of dollars for a CEO? Well, if they want to go from a $500 million company to $1 billion company as an example, and I'm just pulling numbers out of the air, this doesn't mean anything, right? If you've got to have somebody that has run a $1 billion company, and the guy that ran a $1 billion company isn't coming cheap, because he knows what that looks, smells, feels like, you know? And so what would have been wise is, when you have that position, that's such a key director position in your company, you can't just take people in your company and hope that you've raised them up. You need to compare with somebody outside the company who's actually done that job, who brings skills, who brings experience, who brings a breadth of, when I say experience, I mean a breadth of experience. If you want to take somebody and make him a national service manager, for instance, has he ever done that before? Because if he hasn't, then you better hold his hand closely for a long time and help him get to that point. Sales manager, any of those positions. And I'm rambling, so I'll stop. So
This is brilliant stuff. This is brilliant stuff.
But this is what happens is, you know, it could be family member, and you know, this person's sharp. Let me bring them in, right? But have they demonstrated the skill level? And if you're going to do that, my advice is put it on a timetable. Do a 90-day contract or a 1-year contract. Set the parameters that the two of you were talking about before, and did they hit it? Are they going to hit it? And if not, then when that time's up, you can go, hey, you know what? It's the end of our contract. This didn't happen. I love you, but let's move you over here. And that's what you have to do. And it hurts.
Ken, this is what EOS is all about in terms of putting tight processes around accountability and delivering KPIs, and then organizational focus around 4 or 5 or 6 key issues, or key, they call rocks. And now, it's sort of like the whole system is designed to help with what you just said. In fact, you just articulated the system, really, in the last 5 minutes.
Sorry, I don't mean to go over the same thing, but I'd like to, if we can circle back to it, I'm going to turn it back over to you, of course, but I'd really like to talk about quality control and its relationship to this, if we get that opportunity.
That's a very interesting point you brought up. So in our leadership meeting yesterday, quality control came up as a possible position. We all decided that we don't have enough. We just don't have enough in the payroll, space right now. And we don't think it's going to be full time. I don't have quite the good experience with quality. What do you have about that?
I want to tell you something about this. I had that meeting. We had that meeting. Do we really need a quality control? We got a great service manager. We got a great phone room manager. We got a great everything. Do we really need a quality control? Yes. Yes, you got 2 choices. Either you have to do it, or you better hire somebody to do it. And if I could go back in time and look at my one moment where I deviated from the plan, or my one big mistake, that was not hiring the quality control guy. And let me tell you why. It's the fox guarding the hen house, right? You take a guy, I don't care how good he is out there, you bring him in, he had the credentials, he's got the resume, he can do the job. You bring him in and you have him say, okay, I want you to manage this group of people. But when you check with him, how's it going? Oh, we're hitting our numbers. People are happy. There's no complaints. You think everything is great, but it may not be. Have you ever watched an episode of Undercover Boss? Right?
I saw a couple, yeah.
These are multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies, and the CEO goes back down there. Yeah, he's incompetent. He can't do it. It's hilarious. But he finds out sometimes that even with this whole hierarchy of supervisors and managers and directors and area supervisors, and also it still gets down to the bottom guy. Did they really do it? And so here's my point. You got to have somebody else, a third party, unconnected with the department, who understands your service level and is checking that everybody is doing it, right? You can't have like in our phone room, right? You can't have the guy, the director of the phone room, because if he's missing something, he thinks it's okay when it's not okay. So the third party that comes in and listens to those calls and says, hey, Ken, hey, leader, they're not doing exactly the way you told me that it's supposed to be. Now we can bring around, otherwise it's bad habits go from generation to generation, right? That person doesn't know they're not doing a good job because they're doing a job to the best of their ability and it looks good. You got to have quality control. Like I said, when it comes down to, at the end of the day, you either got to do it, or if you're big enough, you hire somebody else to do it. But if you don't do that, quality will suffer over time.
Steve, you are expanding into all these territories. How are you dealing with this?
Well, I wrote down a couple notes. I didn't want to mess up your flow, but let me step back a little bit. A couple things that Ken said. The first thing I have learned, and I was taught very early on, that part of the Peter principle. Very early on, I was taught never take a strength and turn it into a weakness. Meaning, don't take someone who's great in one position, and because you think they're going to be good, you promote them, and now you have a great salesperson can be a bad manager. But now you just have the strength of your company, and you just turned it into a weakness. And you can't, sometimes it's a one-way valve, right? Sometimes you can't go back. So you just basically, by you thinking you're doing the right thing, and this person may not even really want to be a sales manager or whatever, because they don't really know what is involved in being a sales manager, because you don't set the proper expectations with that person. So now you basically, you just took one position that was strength and just turned it into two shitty ones, basically, is what you did. So the other thing, Alex, I'm gonna go on what you said. You talked about whether or not you hire quality control. I would tell you that you need to create an organization chart of how your company looks when it's ready to be sold. I don't know if you've done this. And you have all those positions, all those roles and responsibilities and duties in an org chart of how it looks when it's done. And you hire according to the plan. You don't hire based on, let's say you get a couple of shitty reviews or you get some people complaining, you go, we need quality control. Now you're being reactionary. And you're saying, we need something right now because we have something hitting us in the face right now. The question is it according to the plan? And you hire according to the plan, not according to what's going on. Now, if all of a sudden you're getting a whole landslide of problems and all these problems are coming at you and you're going, you know what, this wasn't part of the plan, but it needs to become part of the plan. Well, then you got to change the plan. You got to redirect it. But saying it's not in the budget, it's in the budget, I think that's a little more reactionary as opposed to saying, what is the plan? The plan is that we hire someone when we are at a $5 million a year revenue company. That's when we feel that our quality is going to slip. So going back to what you were saying, though, when you asked me, is we do a lot of internal training. So I guess my first question is how much internal training did you do in your company, and was it consistent training? Because I know that there's quality control, but I would also say, just like being an airline pilot, right? As an airline pilot, we have to go back to recurrent training every 6 months. We have to do a check ride. We have to do ground school. We have to do CBT, computer-based training modules. We have to do all these things. We're all professional pilots, but we still have to have recurrent training. So I think it's not a matter of just quality control. I think it's a matter of quality control is downstream. You have to go upstream and you have to ask yourself, okay, what is causing bad quality? What is causing the issue? Someone catching it, yes, is good, but that's the cause and effect. The cause may be that you're not continually training your staff. So like what we're doing, and I know where you're going with this, Alex, is, you know, we're looking at licensing our company across the United States, and we're looking to start, as you know, we're looking to start buying other property management companies. So just like Ken said, there's going to be we're going to be grinding some gears, right? We know this is going to happen. What we are doing on the back end is we are creating a huge database of internal training videos, and we're tying those internal training videos to a place that can have basically quizzes attached to the training videos. And basically our staff members we're doing this for every position in the company, they're going to have to do recurrent training on a continual basis, and they're going to have to test out of these modules. And it's something that, you know, instead of me sitting in script class with, you know, we have a lot of, as you guys know, a lot of virtual assistants in Mexico and other stuff. Instead of me having to do training with the property managers, training with the staff in Mexico, training with this, if I do videos, you do it once, it's there forever. You have them test out of it. So I don't necessarily, I don't disagree with the quality assurance guy, but I think that's downstream. I think you cause better quality by training the staff and getting them to continually train, as opposed to someone catching it, one person catching it. Do you guys agree, or am I off base there?
I think you're right in that it is, if you're going to put a lot of people on your payroll, right, you have to have a culture. You have to have a culture that is that people want to come to work, that you get that part of their life, that part of their psyche that you can't pay for, right? Because it's the culture. They want to be there. They're part of the team. They're going to give you what? They're going to give you 100%. Yes, and absolutely, I agree with you with the training. You know, we cut keys, right? There's two ways to cut keys. We choose to cut keys in a way that's different than most companies. We don't copy keys. Most of our keys that we produce are all original keys. That means we go back to a factory machine and we cut these keys as originals. They're not copies of copies. But in this training thing, we're big on training. We've always been big on training. Training is important. And so I agree with you how important the training is. But even with all of that, you're talking with copies of copies of copies and things. Your training video that is right on right now, let me tell you something. At some point, that's going to shift, or people are going to not use it, or something goes wrong, and you do need somebody. And you're right, you have to get to a certain size. When you're small, you got to do it yourself. But at some point, and I'm going to stick to my guns on this because I've lived it. You know, I've lived this. That if you, with all of the training, culture, everything, we have a culture card. Most companies don't even have a culture card. We had that. We made everybody read the culture card before every meeting. We have the YouTube channel with all the training. We have a training room here. I keep bringing people back to the training. And you're 100% correct. But you still have to have something downriver a year from now or whatever that is still going. Is the end result the way it was way back at the, you know? And if it is, great. Maybe you don't, quality control is not that important. Maybe it's a part-time gig. Maybe it's not even, if you're doing that well downstream, then maybe you don't need it. But I'm telling you, even with everything, it's hurt my business by not having it.
Ken, what size in terms of revenue do you recommend to start really putting thoughts around quality?
That's what I was wondering.
Okay, so let's forget about dollar amount, because that's not really a good, unless you're comparing yourself with other companies in your industry, then yes, it would be. But everybody's dollar amounts are different, right? If we do, in our company, if we do 100,000, you know, we're doing 10 million, right? But any other company that does 100,000 product, cranking out 100,000, could be doing 40 million, could be doing 80 million, right? So dollars don't always equate, but I think you get to the point where if you're stepping out, you have certain key people in your company, let's say 4 to 5 major departments where you're relying on department heads. If you're at that size where you have that, then you're going to have quality control. between maybe 3 to 5 department heads. When you get to that point, you're going to have to because you can't see it all yourself. And that's really the rule. When you can't see it all yourself, then you have to hire somebody else to do it. It's got to be an independent person. Companies all over the world do this, right?
Let me ask you this. When you're in that, let's say you're in that in-between, I think Alex and I probably fall in that in-between right now at this point in our business size, revenue, staffing. I see the need for it. The way that we're handling it is through testing and measuring KPIs. So we KPI everything in our company, whether it's phone calls, percentage of calls answered. I mean, you name it, and we've got a KPI spreadsheet for it. Is that the bridge in between, in your opinion, or how do you?
No. Let me say this. It's not about KPIs. Yes, KPIs are probably the most important thing in your business. That's your instrument panel. If you're a pilot, right? This is the illustration you did. KPI is important. But let's say in our case, you got a tech that does 30 jobs. Did he do 30 jobs? Yes. Did he do them correctly? As far as you know, yeah, everything went smoothly, right? But did you talk to those customers? Do you have any other feedback? What were the feedback from those? The KPI was good. Doesn't mean the end result that he could go out and do things maybe halfway. That's still not the answer, right? You got phone calls. Did he take 30? Did this girl in the phone room take her 35 phone calls today? Yes, she did. But did you really listen to any of those calls? You trained her. You have the KPIs. You have the culture, you have everything else, but there's no guarantee, and you have a manager there who should be listening to every call, but there's no guarantee the end result is perfect. So the second answer to the question is, what size are you at, and are you at that point yet? Maybe you're not at that point yet. If you have to question it, you're probably not at that point yet, but you will get there. And when that time comes, whether it's a part-time person or a full-time person, or, it's an independent guy that comes in, every quarter and says, all right, let me listen to 10 phone calls. Let me go out and visit 10 properties. Let me get, you've got to have an independent person who's not drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Somebody who's not guarding their own hen house. You've got to have an independent opinion. I just believe in it.
Well, I agree with that. The only thing I don't necessarily completely agree with is, for example, we'll talk about KPIs. For let's just talk about maintenance, right? So for us, maintenance, right? We want to know there's certain things that we can look at that are going to tell us a story. So whether it's, how many calls were answered doesn't give it to us. How many service tickets we have over 7 days? How many we have over 15 days? Then we use, for example, we use Property Meld. And then we go, okay, what is our rating on Property Meld? It was a 3.5. Now we're 4.9. So that is, to us, that's going to tell us, okay, we have 0 tickets over 7 days. We have, 2% of tickets over 15 days. So that tells us maintenance is getting answered. Then now that doesn't really tell us that the people are happy. The Property Meld on the backside tells us that we have a 4.9 out of 5 rating. Now we go, okay.
That's quality control too.
It's
automated quality control, but maybe at one point that's what you have. That's awesome. I love the technology today that can give you automated feedback on your quality control, right? There was a long time that you look at Mr. Rekey, there was a time where all of our ratings were 5-star, right? We had so many 5-star ratings across the country that people like, Yelp wouldn't even post them all because they said, oh, these got to be bogus. There's no way a company can have that many thousand of 5-star ratings. So they would only post the ones where people had rated multiple companies, right? It was perfect. So that was my feedback. That made me believe that everything was perfect, and that's good. Sure. It is good. But even while I was getting 5-star ratings, I was losing the quality bit by bit, right? And when it hit me all at once, right? All of a sudden, everything starts cratering at one time. So I think that's important. That automated feedback is so important. That's awesome. But I just think that at some point, you need a little bit more than that. That's all.
So I think at FourandHalf here, we offer, sorry, Steve, we offer a managed reputation service that smart property managers get the duality of the advantage here. You built the review capital. That's good. But when every single repair, every single move out, every single move in, and every single owner upon a move in or upon some kind of a customer touch get surveyed and you have this raw data, the 5 stars go get published, but the 1 stars you get. I mean, people, especially larger organizations, multiple offices, love the system, and it really does give them a good finger on the pulse of the business. But where I was going with this is this. I really want to understand, because we're dealing with a similar situation. And it's not that the quality, we had a partnership with another company who did the websites, we did the marketing. Then the website company goes, well, I'm going to do the marketing as well. And so I want all the marketing business now. And so now we've been recommending the website company, and now all of our customers have that website, and some of them are migrating to the, just because it's all in one place, one throat to choke kind of a mindset. And, hey, some people feel that grass is greener somewhere else. And so what I want to know, Ken, what is your plan? How are you turning this thing around, man?
That was my question.
Well, that's good. Well, I've had to get back into the middle of everything, right? Start from scratch, rebuild from the ground up, and go back to the basics, right? Listen to all the phone calls, reset our how things are done, and make sure that everybody is doing it that way, right? It's, I have this graphics company I was talking about. We have a situation there where the original owners had a way of doing things. And that way of doing things built that business to the point that it was. Well, now we're 4 times the size, and we're surveying our customers, and they're happy with the job. But when I bring the owner back and have them look at the same job that the customer said was 5-star, but the owner looks at it and says, oh my God, this is not my standard, right? Well, wait a minute. So we slipped, right? But we're still getting 5 stars from the customers. Well, that's great. But we should have never slipped in the first place, right? What do we do that? So I'm the owner. Maybe people are happy. They'll give me 5 stars for this level of service, but I want that level of service. I want it higher. So I've gone back through every step of our processes. This is what has to take place. Now, we retrained everybody. We put all the training materials into place, and we spent a lot of time redoing and updating all of our training materials. But I do have the quality control person that is sitting there, and I'm playing a role training the quality control person and saying, this may meet the standard of the customer, but this is not my standard. This is not our standard. This is the standard that we're going to stick to. This is our secret formula, and this is the standard we're going to stick to for the rest of the time, right? And you need to make sure that this is the case. And if it's not, you come to me, you come to the managers, you come to whoever and say, we've slipped here or there. So basically, I've rehired a lot of my staff because there's old habits. When you take one person and you let them train the next person, right? And they train the next person, it's copy of copy. Bad habits then get passed down. So I basically have had to clear the slate and say, if anyone's not willing to make those changes and get back to the core business and the core way things are done, then they had to go. And the rest of the people, they came in, they didn't know any different. They came in and said, that's the way you want it done, Ken? That's the way we're going to do it. Boom. Now our quality level comes way up. And it's been a long, hard process to get there. And I feel like, it's hurt. I mean, we've lost a lot of clients. Things went really bad for me. And now we're back to where I feel I'm not 100%, but we've come a long way in the last 6 months to building our company to being the service level that I always dreamed it should be and should stay there. And I'm going to put things in place that I won't let that happen again. I'm not going to let it slip again. So,
Ken, let me ask you this. The lessons that you've learned, are those transcending to your other businesses?
Absolutely. Because, well, part of the reason is with Rekey, I was the founder, right? You get emotional with it.
Sure.
You make emotional decisions when you're the founder. And I made some mistakes. I knew about the Peter Principle, as I said before, but I made some mistakes. When I'm involved in another company, I'm not as emotionally attached. And there I can say, no, we're not going to promote this person because they haven't demonstrated the skill level yet. And here's the thing, people just will demonstrate the skill level before you put them there. If they're not demonstrated beforehand, then that should be your red flag that you can't move them up. If they're already doing that job, then they've already fit into that position. They rightly go there. But in another company, I'm willing to go outside right away and say, okay, let's bring in other people to compare with what I've got. And I'm more prepared to not let myself make that mistake when I'm not as emotionally involved. If that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Now,
just trying to be as raw as I can with it.
No, it's good. It's good. Let me ask you this now. If you were talking to someone, let's say you're talking to me, right? And I'm telling you, hey, I'm about to go national. We're about to start, getting down and dirty, getting money, start buying companies. This is where we're going. What advice would you give me?
Well, first of all, I applaud you because another mistake that I made was how my growth model. And I agree with you. Mergers and acquisitions is a awesome growth model. But every time you take over another company, right, they got their own issues. Right? So the system to bring them into your family and to make those changes is going to be a tough one. If you're owning that company, here's our standard set by you, right? And here's our standard. Those that can get on board with that standard, great. This is what we're going to do for now. Those that can't, you're going to have to let go. And that's going to be hard when you're walking into an environment where these people are like family, right? They all work together. Now you're taking over that company. And now you're saying, here's the new standard, right? And they're going to have some challenges with it. But you've got to have that, and then you have to have somebody follow up, or you've got to be able to follow up and make sure they're doing that and they're not slipping back into their old habits, right?
It's funny you say that, Ken, because being in the airline industry, we are known for doing mergers, right? And so I worked for Continental Airlines, and we merged with United. And last month, so that was 8 years ago. 8 years ago, we announced the merger between Continental and United. Last month, we barely merged the two flight attendant union groups to fly together. It has been 8 years of them not getting the synergy. And, the main reason that is, and they did this with a lot of multiple parts of the company, is it reminded me of the everybody gets a trophy mindset. It was like, okay, we're going to take some here because you guys do some good things, and we're going to take some things here because you guys do some good things, and we're going to try to make everyone happy in the middle. And no one was happy in the middle because everyone was pissed off because everybody had a territory. Now, you take another airline, you had Delta Airlines and Northwest Airlines. Delta Airlines said, you know what, we're buying Northwest, and you know what, it's going to suck, but you know what, Northwest, you're doing it our way on Monday. This is how we're doing it, and you know what, you're going to hate it, and that's just how it's going to be, and eventually you'll forget how it was, and this is the way we're doing it. And they did their merger within a year or two, and it was done, no problems. This is still
right.
It's a lesson of what not to do, and I'm living it, watching this going on. It's like unbelievable. 8 years, and they're still not getting the synergy of why they even did the merger yet.
So I'm working with I'll share the story with you. I'm working with another company that has been given a lot of money to buy up a bunch of companies, right? This is the plan. And they're like, well, which companies do we buy? And my point to them is the ones you need, of course. And here's why. So, for instance, in my graphics company, right, we've got a great product. It's an amazing product. We've got great marketing, but we can't seem to staff it effectively, right? So if I was to buy another company for the graphics company, what would I buy? I'd buy another company that had a great staff. They just didn't necessarily have the marketing and brand, right? And so with this company, well, what do we need? Do we need better branding? Do we need better production? Do we need better staffing? Better management, right? So those are the things. So as you expand, you're going to learn things. I mean, you're already way ahead of the curve. I get that. You're amazing. But as you take on other companies, you may learn some new things that when you take on this other company, you're going to bring into all of the other companies, right? All of the other locations. You're going to say, we just learned about this in Sacramento. This is so awesome. Now everybody has to do it. And when you do that, well, you're going to do it. What? You're going to make everybody do it. There is no, well, you can do it this month. You can do it 9 months from now. You can do it 12 months. No, Steve's going to say, everybody does this as of Monday. That's what's going to happen. That's what Steve is going to do. And the same thing works reverse, right?
Yeah, I like it.
It's challenging. Well, Steve, I know we work with a lot of companies who are acquisition savvy per se, and not a lot of them are successful with every single one because everyone is different. Going in with your own system, it seems to be the way to go. You got to sell them on that system and see who falls off. I think the EOS that you have, Steve, will be like essentially the ticket for you to win with this, if you choose to win with this, because the challenge is a lot of them are remote, right? You're not going to be able to, your integrator Pete is not going to be able to have his claws in there often enough, right? So you got to have to find a way to either retain the existing business owner. This is another thing. When we talk acquisition strategy, you got to think through, are you retaining the owner? Are you going to, what sort of, and I think you have to have one model, because I know companies like mine and others, the larger acquirers of property management companies, they have all these options like, well, you can stay for a couple of years, you can be a VP for us, you can do like, it's very, very sort of open, but your system will work with one model, and you need to settle on that and just execute, right?
Yeah, what we learned with our business model is the way we have it leveraged with our virtual assistants and our systemization and the checklists that have been created. What we have learned is our model is most valuable to us. It is not as valuable to someone else because they don't know how to run the system the way we know how to run it. So while someone can learn to run it, meaning like, let's say we just sold our model, let's say we sold our license model to someone. Yes, it's going to be very effective for them to utilize our leverage tools and our checklists and our virtual assistant teams in Mexico and everything like that. That's going to be great, but it's not going to, we can run it at a much better optimum effectiveness if we went into a business and said, okay, we're just going to buy you. We're going to keep it all. And we're going to basically, you're going to run things the way we run them now. And we're just going to run them that way. And I think that it would, like you said, it's going our way. It's going to have to go our way for us to be as effective as we are, because we have so much things that we leverage, all the apps and technology and people and systems. We know we can, I mean, I'll give you an example. We just had an investor. He gave us 52 doors. Okay. We got 52 doors last week. Our onboarding team in Mexico had them all loaded within 2 days. Last month, we took on 83 properties. Not even a hiccup. I don't know of many systems that can do that where I wasn't even involved in it. I wasn't involved in the negotiation. I wasn't involved in the agreements, the doc prep, onboarding, and I have not heard a peep, and no one in our company has even hiccuped or one bit of stress. So that tells me what?
I think Steve does need a quality control person, because I think you might not know about some stuff. But honestly, I think once you start acquiring, you're going to need to have a quality control person.
Without a doubt. We were thinking and maybe a quality control person, we were thinking we would have a forward team. And that forward team goes to each city or goes to each office, and they're basically implementing. So maybe that's a variation of a quality control, because once they're not a forward team, then they need to go back and keep doing rechecks to make sure the team. But we're going to have basically a floating team, and all they're going to be doing is making sure our systems are running.
That's so right.
On that quality control thing, yes, if you take on a company, yes, your forward team that's going to go in there and get it all mainstreamed into what you're doing. That's right. You don't need the quality control person then. You need them 6 months from now, right? We mainstreamed you 6 months ago. Here was the systems. Here's everything we put into place. Your KPIs look good, great, but we're going to inspect what we expect, right? We're going to come back and just double check to make sure that everything, and if it's not, you want to know about it. You want to know about it right then, so that you can go back and say, 6 months ago we put this in place, but you're circumventing our system here and there. Yes, the numbers still look good. Yes, you're still making customers happy, and we appreciate that. But bottom line is, you got to do it this way going forward.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, well, I think it's about that time that we finish off. This one is, Steve, these are getting better and better.
They're getting better. They're getting better.
Every episode, I'm like, wow, that's really a good nugget of wisdom here. Well, Ken laid out a dinner, like a plate of wisdom. Now I have to go unpack it in my mind, put it on the back of my wall.
I wrote some notes myself over here.
Really good.
No one screwed up more than me, so I've got a lot of lessons, So.
Hey, man, it's perfect. It's been a pleasure and honor to have you, Steve, as usual. Thank you for, your input and your energy to run this and be an entrepreneur. I look up to you, and you inspire me. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. See you next Monday.
Hey, guys. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.